Hello, I'm Diane. Thanks for joining me today to learn how to make a mixed media creature. Mixed media is what we say when an artist uses all different kinds of materials in a work of art. We'll talk a little bit more about what materials we're using a little bit later. Creature means any kind of animal, could be real, could be made up. Today we are going to be inspired by a few different animal sculptures in our folk art collection. Let's take a look. These are some of the animal sculptures in the museum's folk art collection. All three of these sculptures are made largely from carved wood, and they all have details that tell you about the animal. Let's take a closer look at them. This piece is a wooden deer that was made around 1880. You can see that it has antlers, so we know it's a male deer, but the antlers aren't very large, so this might be a young male deer. I also noticed that its mouth is open and its tongue is sticking out. Maybe it's trying to talk to us and tell us something? What do you think this deer might say to us? This sculpture is a wooden horse, also made around 1880. You might notice that the horse's body has a similar shape to the deer's. They both have long, thin legs with hooves, and they both have a long neck and a head that tapers or gets narrower at the animal's snout. This horse also wears a saddle and a bridle. The artist has also painted on a saddle pad with a patterned edge. The way it's decorated and the way it's standing makes me think that this horse is ready to be seen by people, and it was meant to be on display. Look closer at the horse's tail. It's made of real horsehair. Our last sculpture is a little different from the others. It's wooden like the other two, and it was made in 1923. It has that narrow snout like the others, but instead of 4 legs, it has wheels. This isn't a sculpture just for display like the deer and the horse. This one could actually be ridden. Can you tell what kind of animal this is? If you look closely, it has horns. It's a goat. And just like how the horse sculpture's tail was made of real horsehair, this goat's horns are real goat horns. We may not have any real animal hair or horns for our sculpture, but I'll show you how to make your own animal sculpture out of cardboard and other materials you might have around your home. Let's get started. I really like those animal sculptures, did you? Okay, so now we're going to make our own mixed media creatures. Here's what you need. 2 cardboard paper tubes, like these ones from toilet paper rolls. You could also use 1 paper towel roll, which is about this long. If you don't have rolls or you only have 1, you can also use a thin piece of cardboard, like from a cereal box or a cracker box, something like that, something that's thin enough that you can bend and cut it easily. We also need bottle caps. I brought out a couple different examples. This one's off a big thing of juice. I like this size because it's going to be wheels like on our goat, and the wheels will be nice and big. But if you have a smaller cap like this one from a water bottle or a soda bottle, that works well too. You'll need 4 of these. Hopefully you can get 4 the same size, but if they're not exactly the same size, that's okay. You also need masking tape. This is going to be really important to hold everything together. If you have colored masking tape, that's great. But if you have regular, I don't know, what is this kind of beige masking tape, that's fine. You also need disposable chopsticks. If you ever order out from a Chinese or other Asian restaurant, you might have some of these lying around. You might also have things like bamboo skewers, or a drinking straw might work, one that's plastic. It might be a little bit hard to work with because it kind of bends easily. So if you have chopsticks, that's great, but whatever you can find. We need scissors, a scrap of paper. This is just like a piece of like newsprint that I had, or if you have like some junk mail, you just need a little piece. A hammer and a little nail. And then also, if you have a piece of cardboard to work on when you're using the hammer, and a pencil or a pen. Optional, you could have some materials for decorating your creature, like markers. Permanent markers work well for masking tape. You might have stickers, colorful washi tape with patterns. You might want to have glue with beads or sequins or other things for decorating. That's all optional though. Okay, so let's start. If you have your 2 tubes, one of them is going to be the body of your animal. Remember how the deer and the horse and the goat all kind of had like a long body like this? So that's going to be the main part. If you have your second tube, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to smush it flat. Clear my workspace here. I'm just going to press it down flat. And I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut it in half. And it's okay if it's not perfectly in half or perfectly straight. You don't have to be exact. So I have 2 little tubes, and then see this one is smushed. I'm going to cut it along both sides where I folded it. One on this side, and put on this side. So now I have two small pieces of cardboard. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making my own version of a creature that has wheels on the bottom, like the goat. So this is going to be the axle shaft. This is what's going to hold the wheels in. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we're going to take one of these pieces and we're going to curl it in. It's already kind of curved because it was in a tube before. So you just let that curve follow and you're going to connect the two pieces and we're going to tape it together. So I'm going to rip off a piece of masking tape that's a little bit longer than the length of my cardboard piece. And I'll show you why that is in a sec. So I'm going to put this over part of one edge and see how I have the tape hanging off. And then I'm going to pull it around so that the two edges line up. I'm just going to flatten my tape and then see how I have the two extra edges on either side like this. And then I'm going to fold in the two sides of the tape so that they go inside and they really hold it together. So see, I made a little tiny tube. You're going to do the same thing with the other one. I prepared one before, so now I have two. Okay, now we want to get our wheels together. And here's where you need the hammer and nail. So again, if you have a piece of cardboard or something to protect your work surface, this also might be something that a grown-up can help you with, so you might want to ask for help. I have my cardboard down. I'm going to take my bottle cap. I'm going to use the bigger one for this. I'm going to put the open side down so the flat side is on top. I have my nail, and a lot of caps have like a little bump or something in the center. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the center, but I'm going to get that nail as close as I can. And I'm going to just tap with my hammer. You don't want to go too hard because I don't want to scratch up my table. But I'm just going to do a few taps until it goes through. And you can see the nail's not going too far down, so it didn't even touch my cardboard, but it's good to have it there. And then once the nail is through, you just want to kind of wiggle it around to help make that hole a little bit bigger. The plastic is pretty soft, but you might just need to wiggle it a little bit. So you can push in the tip of a pencil, just be careful not to break it, or a pen. Or you could also use your chopstick. I'm going to separate them. And one side usually is a little thinner and one side is thicker. You can also use the thinner end to kind of work in there until your hole's a little bit bigger. So I'll show you what I've done with these. Once you have those, you're going to do it on all four bottle caps. And then remember we had our chopstick that was separated, and I'm going to use my scissors. I'm going to find about the middle, and I'm going to squeeze it like I'm cutting it all around, and I'm going to rotate my chopstick as I squeeze. And this is made of pretty thin wood, so you can just go around a couple times. See how there's like a notch around there? I should be able to just break it like that. So once you have your two pieces, you're going to take your bottle caps, and like this one I did before, you're going to stick the thinner end of the chopstick through your hole and let a little bit stick out here. And I'm going to do that with both of mine. So let me get this on each end at a time. You don't want to put these on quite yet, and I'll show you why in a second. So once I have these two on, now I'm going to attach my axles to the bottom. So this is where our two wheels are going to go. So I'm just going to get a big piece of masking tape for my first one, put it on that little cylinder I made earlier, and then I'm going to line it up. See how the holes of this tube are going in the opposite direction, like my big tube is going up and down, and my little tube is going side to side. So I'm going to just tape that on there like that. And then I'm going to do it one more time with my other axle shaft. Tape on there. And if you need more than one piece of tape, that's perfectly fine. Use whatever you need to get it all connected and secure. All right, kind of looks like a train car or something like that. All right, so now I have my wheel with the axle, stick it through, and now you can stick the other bottle cap on. And you want to stick it down so that the chopstick is sticking out a little bit. So there's one, and then we'll do the same thing with the other. Okay, and there we have it. You can see how it rolls kind of like that goat sculpture we saw. Okay, so now let's make it look like a creature. We still have that smaller half of the tube that we didn't use before. So what we're gonna do is cut it along one fold, and I don't quite need this whole length, so I'm actually gonna trim a little bit off, maybe like a quarter or so off the end. So I have this rectangle and then this smaller one. And now I'm going to make the neck of my creature. So you might remember on the horse, the deer, and the goat, they all have kind of long necks. And since they have big bodies, the neck is thicker down toward their body, and then it thins a little bit narrower toward their head, kind of almost like an ice cream cone shape, but without that point. So I'm going to take my bigger rectangle and I'm going to fold it on itself, kind of like overlapping a little bit, like this, to make that neck shape where, see how it's wider on this side and it's thinner on that side? I'm going to tape that together once I like the shape. And again, you're going to need however much tape you need for this, so don't be afraid to put on extra pieces if you need. And then I'm going to connect this here to form that neck. And you can kind of angle it how you like. I'm going to angle it a little up so that the head is up. And I'll put a couple of pieces of masking tape down to hold that there. Here's the top of the neck. And this is pretty secure. You can see there's some open space here. That's fine. You can put a couple pieces of tape there just to hold it all together. All right, is it starting to look a little bit like a creature? So for the head, I'm taking my scrap of paper. You know, this isn't that big. You might want to experiment a little. I'm just going to crumple it into a ball. You might also remember looking at all of those animal sculptures that the deer, the horse, and the goat kind of, there's almost another ice cream cone shape. The top near the neck is more big and round, and then it sort of narrows down to their snout or their nose. So this is going to be kind of the big and round part. So I've crumpled it into a ball, and it's going to go right here. Again, a couple pieces of tape to hold that in place. You might want to also, if your ball is a little bit loose like mine, you might want to put a couple pieces just to keep the ball together, being held together a little better. And I'm going to just put the head at the top part of the neck, and I'll put a couple of pieces of tape to hold it on. Oh, I'm noticing something. See how now that it's heavier on this end, my creature is starting to move a little forward. That's okay. I can just adjust where my wheels are. I can move the front wheels a little further forward. So that the balance is better. There we go. And then, okay, remember we had that little tiny rectangle left over after we made the neck? We're gonna make that into the snout. So you're just gonna do kind of a mini version of what we did on the neck. You're gonna pinch that together. And this one you might wanna hold up. This might be a little bit long, so I might trim it a little bit shorter so the snout isn't quite so long. And ooh, that looks good. So once you like that shape, just tape it together again. You can see I'm doing a lot of taping here. And then tape it onto the head that you put on earlier. All right. It looks a little bit silly, but here's my creature. So this might be a goat, it might be a horse, it might be a deer, it might be a dog. You can add some other details like we saw in the sculptures. Maybe you want to add antlers and make it into a deer, or horns like that goat. You might want to add ears. So I have these like little scraps here. I'm gonna just cut two little tiny horns like it's a young goat. And if you have another piece of paper or some more cardboard, you can use that too. You don't have to use teeny tiny scraps like I did. And I'm just gonna put some pieces of tape to attach my horns. All right, and there we have it. Here's my funny little wheeled goat inspired by the folk art collection piece at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And once you've finished the whole sculpture form, here's where you can decorate. So again, if you have colorful tape, If you have markers, stickers, you might want to glue on things like, I don't know, feathers, beads. You could make a little face if you'd like with eyes or nostrils, or maybe a mane if you're making a horse. Totally up to you. But whatever you end up making, I hope you have fun with your mixed media sculpture. See you later.